It's just a ring, Liam scowled, gifting it to his fiancée. Sophie, it was my grandma's. They mocked my anger. Now they've lost everyone. Justice. He's an incredible person, and I adore my husband. Noah, though, like anyone, we're not perfect. We both grew too old to still be in foster care, and our paths crossed at a program designed to assist young people, kind of like a camp that teaches life skills, like how to handle money or get certifications if that's what you needed. We were both just barely adults, both 18, and we kept talking once the program wrapped up. He let me know he had feelings for me, but I was genuinely terrified of men at that time, considering what I'd been through before, and I turned him down maybe a little too strongly. I got in touch with him to say I was sorry, and we became friends. Then, a year or two after that, I noticed a post on his Snapchat showing he was nearby. So I suggested we go out so I could try to feel more at ease around guys. And he said yes. He was very respectful and never tried anything. He never even laid a hand on me, and he didn't make me uncomfortable by staring. If I declined something, he accepted that immediately and didn't even bring it up again for several months. We went on these dates without anything romantic happening, and one day, I was the one who asked him for a hug, then a kiss, and that's when he asked me to officially be his girlfriend. We celebrated our wedding about a year later, and our 7th anniversary will be here pretty soon. Since we both know what it's like to be raised by young parents, we decided together that we wouldn't even consider having children until we were further along in life. We've basically just been putting all our energy into living frugally and trying to put aside as much money as possible to finally become homeowners. Fortunately, we managed to purchase our own place a few months back, allowing both of us to finally leave our extra jobs and simply work a standard 9 to 5. I'm so happy that I've realized how much I enjoy both working in the garden and whipping up treats in the kitchen. And, honestly, just creating a comfortable space for myself. We've been talking about growing our family by bringing a little one into the world, and I really feel like I'm prepared to step into the role of a mother. I'm still nervous, absolutely, but still, I'm ready. However, Noah pointed out how heartbroken I would be if I was forced to give up my job, especially considering all the effort I poured into my career. I made it clear to him that I had absolutely no intention of quitting altogether. I would only be taking some time off for maternity leave. Furthermore, my job provides the opportunity for both mothers and fathers to work remotely for a full year after the baby arrives, meaning I can just continue my job from the comfort of my own house, should it be necessary. I understand it will be challenging to juggle everything with a new baby, but sacrificing the stability that my income provides is just not something I'm willing to consider. He reminded me that the whole point of all of our hard work was to create the kind of family we always dreamed of, something totally different from our own childhoods, and that I was taking him by surprise by shifting my priorities. I responded by telling him that my plans hadn't changed at all, and that I am fully capable of having a career and being a mother at the same time. Tons of women manage to make it work. Why would I be expected to give up my career to be a parent when he doesn't have to? He argued that it would be feasible for a baby, and I responded by saying, fine, considering I earn more than you, why don't you leave your job, and I can resume remote work after recovering from childbirth. That way, we'll both be available to help, and we won't experience a significant drop in earnings, seeing as I bring in $889.0 annually while he makes $52.0 per year. He suggested that if I truly had faith in him, this wouldn't even be a discussion. I explained that I do trust him, but I don't have confidence in the current economic climate, though I didn't voice my belief that quitting my job with no savings, especially after being financially drained from buying the house and being financially dependent on a man, is a ridiculous idea. He had already scheduled plans to see his family and had to leave, so we decided to revisit this conversation upon his return. But he's incredibly upset. He is more angry than I've ever witnessed, and I'm confused why he simply took it for granted that I would resign. Not only am I perplexed by this, but it's also diminishing my trust in him quite a bit compared to yesterday. I tend to avoid difficult situations, and I must admit this situation is making me anxious. I'm all ears to any possible reasons or explanations for his way of thinking, because it just doesn't make sense to me. I suspect he is watching lots of online videos promoting the stay-at-home spouse lifestyle. which seems to be influencing him a good bit. Edit: this post has been changed because something new happened. We aren't together anymore. Update 1. It's only been a handful of days since he showed up at the house and confessed he'd met a woman where he works and that she's somehow a better partner than me, and also that she already has a child and intends to be a stay-at-home wife, girlfriend, or whatever the hell. I suppose he's getting the life he wants. Just before I was done with work, he sent me a text asking that I pick up dinner. It was from one of the restaurants we frequently went to on date nights. When I arrived at the house, I saw boxes in his car along with a strange woman that was unfamiliar to me. I attempted to open the front door, but it was locked, and the woman simply looked in my direction. He took what little money we had managed to save, and he took both of our cats too. This blindsided me completely. I haven't broken the news to my friends at all. His adopted parents have been bringing me meals that I can't bring myself to swallow. Tears haven't come yet. I guess I'm still processing everything. I long for a family I could turn to, for support, but for the time being, I'll have to make do with online support. I have not responded to his phone calls or text messages. He keeps attempting to reach out, wanting to know if I'm doing all right. How on earth could I possibly be okay? I never expected that he would be unfaithful. I specifically asked him to promise me that if he ever developed feelings for someone else, that he would just let me know as soon as he realized it. But they've apparently been together for at least half a year. So, while he was accusing me of being selfish for not wanting to quit my job without notice and just be a stay-at-home wife, he was seeing her the entire time, the whole time. He was mapping out a life with her. I feel like a fool. I guess I really ought to have listened to everyone's suggestions a little more closely. He refused when I suggested he get some therapy. His folks are worried that he might be on the verge of some kind of breakdown. I should have stayed away from him, kept my distance out of fear. I should have picked a different path for my life, one that led to a better place. I just feel like I'm that same girl that nobody's interested in loving anymore, all over again. I understand that what he did isn't my responsibility. I know I couldn't have stopped him. And honestly, do I even want a guy who doesn't want me? Absolutely not. But understanding that doesn't make the pain go away, unfortunately. Particularly those spouses who went through something similar, it was more helpful than you can possibly imagine. A couple of things have happened, and to be honest, I'm completely drained. So the advice from others has really been helpful for organizing my thoughts and staying open to different perspectives. For days, I couldn't stop myself from comparing us and wondering what the heck could have been going through his head until I realized she's pretty much a clone of his birth mother, or at least from the stories he heard about her. Since she passed away when he was 5, I really dislike that I still feel sorry for him, even after everything he's done, but we tried to be there for him and support his thoughts. We pushed him to seek counseling. I even offered to cover the costs myself, but he was too arrogant. I also experienced the loss of both my mum and dad, and it happened later in life, after I'd created even more significant memories with them. So he wasn't the only one who understood that kind of grief, but he decided to behave as if he was completely alone and indulge in his own sorrow. He actually phoned me right after midnight on our 7th wedding anniversary, softly murmuring apologies and confessing how incredibly guilty he felt. I questioned him about the reason for his guilt, and his response was just that. I already knew about the difficult situation we were facing. I corrected him, saying that the difficulties were entirely of his own making. As far as I was concerned, we weren't going through any shared hardship. I was left to fend for myself, my husband having abandoned me and left me vulnerable to all sorts of uncertainties while he was sleeping with her and then returning home to me. Since we were still intimate almost every day, I really emphasized to him just how repulsive I found his behavior. That's when he got angry and claimed that his infidelity began only because I wasn't willing to go along with his plans. Seriously, he should see where his actions got him. Throughout our entire marriage, I've been the one supporting his career. And frankly, it was me who submitted the application for his current position. Yet, I'm pretty sure he either doesn't or didn't even have a clue what my exact job title is. I was the one who urged him to contact the adoptive parents when his desire for a family grew stronger. Even though neither of us was truly prepared to raise a child, he continued arguing that I was the first to break a commitment when I decided against being a real mother by not giving up my career. He even accused me of turning his adoptive parents against him because they don't want to meet his new girlfriend. Once again, he laid the blame at my feet, and then actually dared to suggest that we could possibly reconcile if I could figure out how to make choices that are good for a family, not just for me. I directly questioned him about whether he was implying that we could rekindle our relationship if I resigned from my position. His response was affirmative, stating that his love for me would never diminish, but I was unnecessarily complicating matters. I disconnected the call and made sure he couldn't contact me anywhere. I spent the remainder of the evening clutching a bottle of wine in the tub, pondering what sort of individual I had entrusted with my affections. The following day, he announced their romance to the world, sharing a picture on Instagram, and nearly all of our shared acquaintances reached out, although my closest companions left fewer, more understated comments. It turned out that he and his new partner had been involved for approximately 7 or 8 months. She's 20 years old, and her child is roughly 2 years old. I made contact with her former boyfriend, the father of her child, whom she had left to be with my ex-husband. She relocated in the middle of the day, taking their child with her, so he felt equally shocked, if not even more so, than I did. We got together and went for a stroll, eventually pausing at a local establishment. I genuinely wept, chuckled, embraced him, belted out some songs at an excessive volume, and openly sobbed in public, like someone who had lost their mind. But it was incredibly therapeutic. We also made certain to swap supporting information that could be used in any legal proceedings. I'm feeling a bit uncertain about him currently, especially considering the significant difference in their ages. She was only 17 when they initially met, and he was 26. He claimed she wasn't truthful about how old she was, and they initially encountered each other at a campus gathering. Soon after, she was expecting. I guess he supplied funds so she could get an abortion, but instead, she showed up with a bunch of baby items, so he attempted to step up and have her move in. Oh, and it turns out she doesn't really have a cat allergy. The truth is, she simply can't stand felines. Also, she was completely cognizant that he was a married man and had visited his residence several times. He confessed that he had been unfaithful to me prior to our son's arrival, even while she was carrying his child. But apparently, she didn't let him know she was aware until after she and our son had left. He mentioned that he was still messaging her daily, and not exclusively about their child. He was also talking about a potential reconciliation. I understand that he hopes to get back together with her, but she seems to be completely enamored with my spouse, just like I was once. I wished him well, but seriously, whatever, that's completely the opposite of what I'm planning to do now. He's created this situation, so he's going to have to deal with the consequences permanently. There's absolutely no chance of us ever getting back together. After I've been betrayed by someone, I have never let them back into my life, and I'm not about to start now. Initially, my goal was to ensure the divorce process would be quick and straightforward, even if that meant sacrificing certain things. But after hearing that conversation, I've made the decision to fight relentlessly for every single thing that I'm entitled to, even though I reside in a state where fault isn't a factor in divorce proceedings. Adultery has specific legal ramifications here, allowing for lawsuits based on it. The divorce lawyer I spoke with gave me some reassuring news, hinting that I likely won't be obligated to pay him alimony. He also advised me to scrutinize every single transaction in my accounts. His suspicion was that he couldn't have afforded an apartment on his salary alone without some additional support. And unfortunately, he was spot on about that being my money. It turns out that last year, when Noah mentioned his newfound interest in stock trading and asked to invest some of my funds, he was pulling a fast one. It turns out the stock trading was bogus, and those screenshots he showed me were either complete fabrications or sourced from elsewhere, and he had actually been funneling that money to his girlfriend or putting it aside for their new residence. I've been absolutely furious ever since I uncovered that deception. After he had to relinquish the cats because his new girlfriend has allergies, he even got his adoptive parents to ask me to grant him visitation with them. I made it quite clear that he first needs to give me back my damn money, and then he can discuss visitation rights with the judge. I didn't realize that visitation was even a possibility for pets, but apparently, according to my attorney, it's definitely a real thing. Yesterday, I took the official step of filing for divorce, and he sent me quite a scathing email, calling me selfish and bitter for not swallowing my pride. He also complained that I rushed into filing for divorce and refused to let him come over to see the cats. And now he's turning around and accusing me of infidelity. I once came across a saying that you don't fully understand a person until you're going through a divorce with them. And based on my experience, I can say that's completely accurate, given all the encouragement I received. I figured I owed you all some kind of news, although I can't go into too much detail right now. I just really wanted to thank you again. Moving on to my next tale, my mom took my grandma's engagement ring, which had a Christmas theme, and then handed it over to Liam's fiancée, Sophie. My relatives labeled me as being self-centered when I asked to have it returned. I've been constantly getting texts and calls from my mum's side of the family, as well as my own siblings. And it's making me wonder if I'm taking things too far. Last Christmas, the first noticed on social media that Liam had proposed to his soon-to-be sister-in-law, who goes by Sophie. At first, I was thrilled for them both, but that changed when I saw the ring in the pictures Sophie had shared. I instantly recognized it as the same engagement ring that belonged to my grandmother. So I called my mum to ask if she had temporarily given the ring to Liam. She dismissed my question, stating that, in fact, she intentionally gave him the ring because I dislike Christmas, whereas Sophie adores it. To give you some background, I was always closer to my dad's side of the family, my grandma. In particular, my grandmother passed away just last year, and the only thing I inherited from her was that engagement ring. It was supposed to be mine on my 30th birthday. My grandmother really adored Christmas time, and that was obvious when you looked at her engagement ring. The design features an emerald-cut diamond surrounded by small, round rubies and oval emeralds to resemble holly. And truthfully, there was a time when I didn't loathe Christmas as much as I do now. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, I lost my boyfriend of a decade, my best friend since childhood, and my sorority sister in a traffic collision. They were on their way home from a Christmas gathering that we had all been at. I've been seeing a therapist, coping with the feeling that I don't deserve to still be here, but I'm on the mend. I explained to my mum that the ring was rightfully supposed to be passed down to me, and that she wasn't at liberty to just keep it for herself. Her reply was that she had a whole container filled with my grandmother's jewelry, and I was welcome to simply choose something else. I was fuming for a couple of days before getting in touch with my uncle on my father's side, the individual who's handling the estate. He was absolutely livid and informed me that my mum had apparently claimed she was intending to gift the ring to me as a Christmas present. He then offered to put me in contact with a legal professional if I wanted to move forward with a lawsuit. We continued our conversation for a little while longer before ending the call. Fortified with this information, I sent a message to my mum, Liam, and Sophie, stating that I'd spoken with my uncle and that I would be pursuing legal action if the ring wasn't given back to either me or him. Liam attempted to argue that he really wanted to have the ring, but since I supposedly despise Christmas, I wasn't worthy of having it. I allowed them to continue sending messages, saving their menaces for future use as proof. I let them know that they had 7 days to give back the ring, or I'd carry out my threat and involve law enforcement. At this point, my mother's relatives, in addition to my other siblings, are currently badgering me. Everyone seems to think I'm making things into a bigger deal than they are. I'm not. I'm certain I'm not. But the way everyone is behaving makes me start to question my own sanity. Here's the first update. Everyone, before I start talking about the update, I want to clarify a couple of things that people have mentioned since my last post. For one thing, my mom and my dad's mom got along well enough before she died. They weren't super close or anything, but they treated each other with kindness, which is why my mom received a box of her jewelry. It's mostly made up of brooches, but it does include some of her nicer items, like her locket and a charm bracelet. Secondly, my dad died from a heart problem the year I finished middle school, and that's why he's not involved in what's going on with my mom since he passed. My dad's side of the family has really tried to make up for his absence, which explains why I'm so close to them. Okay? Now for the update. The day after I put up my last post, Sophie sent me a private message and asked me to meet her somewhere discreetly. The next day, we set up a time to get together at a nearby diner for lunch and to chat. It felt strange to meet with her, considering I wasn't sure what her take on the situation was. Sophie has never been unkind, just direct, and not in a nasty way. It's more that she's a person who doesn't say much. Some comments implied that she was being deceitful for accepting the ring. But the truth is, she hasn't been part of the family long enough to know about my grandmother's ring. Before my grandmother got sick, she only met her once or twice. After we took our seats, she asked me to recount stories about my grandma. At first, I thought the request was odd, but I started sharing some memories from my childhood involving her. I began explaining how I'd assist her in harvesting tomatoes from her garden to create homemade sauce. Also, I described the times we'd spent on her porch, simply observing the sunset. Furthermore, I mentioned how, during the Christmas service, she would always hold my hand when navigating the large steps, because the throngs of people often caused me to become separated. In short, it looked like Sophie felt a connection to what I said. Before she quickly said she was sorry, she was unaware about the ring. She only knew that it was a family heirloom, meaning she was now part of our family. Once she had read the text message, she argued with Liam, but he just dismissed it by saying I was exaggerating, pointing out that it wasn't the only jewelry that I had, which is indeed accurate. To be honest, I possess my grandmother's pearl earrings as well as her pearl necklace, but they were a gift for my 16th birthday, not something I inherited. That really angered Sophie, and she left to stay with her relatives. Apparently, she'd experienced something similar, having been cheated by her older family members when it came to her own grandmother's inheritance. She gave back the ring and said she's thinking about calling off the wedding. I told her to really give it some thought. Then, wearing a smile, she explained that she couldn't possibly be associated with a family that acted in such a passive, aggressive, and nasty manner. We continued chatting for a while before parting amicably. Liam really messed things up, as she was a wonderful person. Just yesterday, my mother phoned me, informing me that I had overstepped my boundaries and that Sophie now wants nothing to do with our family. I questioned what she actually anticipated, given that Sophie was a kind individual who likely wouldn't want to become part of a family known for dishonesty and thievery. My mum responded that Liam was devastated upon returning home to discover she had packed her belongings and left. I suggested that perhaps if they hadn't tried to steal my ring, Sophie wouldn't view them negatively, and she might still be interested in marrying Liam. My mum hurled insults at me before abruptly ending the call. I inquired with my uncle whether, now that the ring was in my possession, I could simply keep it. My uncle said that would be acceptable since he knew I owned a secure safe where I could store it, a high-tech, fingerprint-activated safe, where I also keep my registered gun and important legal papers. He simply ensured that the transfer of the ring to me was recorded so that he wouldn't panic trying to locate it when my 30th birthday rolled around. I'm currently wearing it on my middle finger because it's slightly too large for my ring finger. I went out with my new partner this morning. We've been together for about 9 months, and they adored it. I'm thinking of uploading a picture of the two of us either tonight or tomorrow, just to see what kind of reaction I get. I really appreciate everyone who had my back. It made me feel like I wasn't imagining things. For a long time now, I've been the child that nobody really liked, so I've gotten accustomed to sharing everything or just letting things go. However, my grandmother's ring was something I was willing to fight for, and if they keep acting the way they are, I might cut them off completely. Right now, I'm keeping contact to a minimum because of all this mess. Final update. To begin, I truly am sorry for using a word that was offensive in my previous post. I wasn't aware of where it came from, and I promise I won't use it again. So, getting to the update part, Sophie has relocated somewhere new to get a fresh start and only talks to a handful of us now and then. She's doing great, and I'm incredibly proud of her progress. Regarding my family, after getting bombarded with harassing messages through texts, emails, and even physical letters for days, I sent them screenshots as proof to show they were lying. Since then, almost all of the family has stopped talking to my mum and Liam, except for my younger sibling, who still lives in the same house, and a relative I don't see much. As for me, things are going really well. I've taken up sewing to make costumes, started doing yoga in the mornings, and still love going on dates with my significant other. We're even considering adopting a bird. They can still have it even with their allergies. While nothing illegal has happened, I did install security cameras just to be on the safe side. Now that the harassment has stopped, my partner and I are content. Sophie is doing wonderfully, and it seems like my mom and Liam finally came to the conclusion that they lost. Life is pretty good.